the merger with the movement of John the Baptist. During the months of November and December of the year 27, Jesus and the 24 apostles worked rather inconspicuously in the cities of the Decapolis. The Decapolis was a confederation of 10 cities, bordering Jewish Galilee, and under Greek influence. Now there were 24 apostles because the 12 apostles of John the Baptist had joined Jesus. They worked mainly in Scythopolis, Gerasa, Abila, and Gadara. In reality, this meant that they took over the work of John and his organization. Whenever a new religion arises and becomes communal property, it must pay the price of compromising with the existing forms and customs of the previous religion. Baptism was the price Jesus' followers had to pay to gain the followers of John as a socialized religious group. By joining the followers of Jesus, John's followers gave up almost everything except the water baptism. Jesus gave little public teaching in the Greek Decapolis. At this time, he often taught the 24, and he also spent much time with John's 12 apostles. Over time, they gained more understanding of why Jesus did not visit John in prison and why he did not strive to free him. However, they could not understand why Jesus did not perform miraculous works, why he refused to show outward signs of his divine authority. Before they had come to the Gilboa camp, they had mainly believed in Jesus because of John's testimony. But soon they began to believe in him as a result of their own contact with the Master and his teaching. During these 2 months, the group usually worked in pairs, with one of Jesus' apostles going out with one of John's apostles. John's apostle baptized, Jesus' apostle taught, while both preached the gospel of the kingdom, and they won many souls in this non-Jewish region. Abner, the head of John's apostles, became a sincere believer in the kingdom, and he was later appointed head of the 70 teachers whom were sent out as the preachers of the gospel. In the second half of December, Jesus, along with the 24 apostles, returned to the camp near the town of Pella. Both Jews and non-Jewish truth-seekers came to this camp to hear the gospel. One afternoon, while Jesus was teaching these people, disciples of John the Baptist arrived with a personal message for Jesus. John had now been in prison for a year and a half, and for most of this time, Jesus had worked inconspicuously. It was therefore not surprising that John was disappointed. John's disciples approached Jesus and said, "John the Baptist has sent us to ask, 'Are you the Savior, or should we expect another?'" Jesus paused for a moment and said to John's disciples, "Go back and tell him that he is not forgotten. Tell him what you see and hear here. Tell him that the good news is preached to the poor." Jesus spoke briefly with John's messengers and then turned to everyone standing nearby. And with a clear, loud voice, he said, "Do not think that John doubts the gospel of the kingdom. He is conducting this inquiry to strengthen the faith of his disciples, who have now also become my disciples. John is not a weakling. May I ask, who among you heard John preach before Herod put him in prison? What did you see in John? Was he like a reed swayed by the wind? Did you see a man of fickle moods? Was he dressed in soft garments? What did you see when you looked at John? Did you recognize him as a prophet? Yes, I tell you, he is much more than a prophet. Of John, it is written, 'Behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way.' Truly, truly, I tell you, among all the children born of men, there is none greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than John, because this believer is born of the Spirit and knows that he has become a son of God." From that day, John's apostles felt firmly connected to Jesus. These affirming words of Jesus marked the bond between John's followers and those of Jesus. After speaking with Abner, the messengers went back to the prison to report all this to John. He was greatly encouraged, and his faith was strengthened by Jesus' affirming words and Abner's message. That afternoon, Jesus continued his teaching to the gathered crowd and said, "To what shall I compare this generation? Many of you did not want to accept John's message, and you are also not open to my message, the revelation of the Father. You are like children playing in the marketplace and calling to their companions, 'We played the flute for you, but you did not dance. We mourned, but you did not weep.' And so it is with some of you. John the Baptist was pious, he came neither eating nor drinking, and they said he had a demon. The Son of Man comes, and he eats and drinks, and these same people say, 'Look, a glutton and a wine drinker, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' It seems that the Father in heaven has hidden his truths from the wise and proud, while he reveals them to the humble. But the Father does all things well, he reveals himself in a way he chooses. Therefore, come all who labor and are heavy laden, and you will find rest for your souls. Take the divine yoke upon you, and you will experience the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding." John the Baptist was executed on the evening of January 10th in the year 28, by order of Herod Antipas. The next day, some of John's disciples heard of his execution. They went to Herod and asked for his body and laid it in a tomb. Later, they buried it in Sebaste, the hometown of Abner. On January 12th, this sad news reached the apostles' camp, and shocked, they told Jesus about John's death. When Jesus heard this sad news, he dismissed all the listeners. He called the 24 apostles together and said, "John is dead. Herod has beheaded him. Hold a joint meeting tonight and settle your affairs. There will be no more delay. The hour has come to proclaim the kingdom openly and with power. Tomorrow we go back to Galilee. We will return to the house of Zebedee in Capernaum."